According to SBM intelligence, over 350,000 farmers. That's not the issue. The issue is where nobody toils it. Because in the end, if anybody wants to control anybody, control it. Insecurity in Africa is not just reducing the amount of farmlands available for cultivation, it is systematically destroying agricultural productivity by shifting farmers out of their lands, disrupting labor availability, and turning rural economies into danger zones. Across the green belts of Nigeria, places like Benue, Kaduna, Taraba, Cross River, Ebonyi, Edo, farms once filled with yam, corn, cassava, banga, palm, cocoa, are now graveyards, not just for crops, but for opportunities, even lives.
Last year, this time I done the eat my farm, but this year no fit do am well as I did do before.
According to SBM intelligence, over 350,000 farmers have been displaced from their farms. Imagine that, over the past 8 years. And in Benue alone, over 165 farmers have been killed due to unknown gunmen and banditry. In 2023 alone, thousands of others have been kidnapped and ransom has been paid from 300,000 to 5 million. Some of these farmers have still been killed despite those ransom being paid. In places like Benue, the acclaimed food basket of the nation, farmlands are now empty because of fear.
Have problem of insecurity is you see that there will be low production of this of these crops, because there is the fear that if you go to your farm, you don't know what will happen.
Insecurity has turned farmland, which is supposed to be a productive asset, into a liability.
Lost about 16 million on this herdsmen problem. I did 5 hectares. 5 hectares, out of 5 hectares, they ate about 4.5 hectares.
Imagine a yam farmer in a place like Taraba who has like 5 hectares of yam farm. That farm, which could have been producing up to about 3 to 5 or even 6 million naira, is now lying fallow with nobody making use of it, just there. Now you may say, yeah, it's just the land that is lying fallow. That's not the issue. The issue is what it could have been producing in terms of capital, in terms of finances, in terms of feeding, the economic impacts that land could have had if it wasn't lying fallow. This is something to think about. According to the NBS, maize farming saw up to 20% decline from 2020 to 2023 in high conflict zones. Rice also was something that wasn't left out in places like Kebbi and Zamfara. And this is something that affects the nation, because in May 2024, food inflation hit up to 40%. And right now, over 100 million Nigerians now live in multi-dimensional poverty, of which food is a massive determining factor. Now, the problem isn't just that many farmers are fleeing their farms, but their children no longer even want to farm. So many youths now see farming as a death sentence, and they just don't want to have anything to do with farming. And now there is a massive labor gap in agriculture, in farming. And this is, of course, a problem, because if there is nobody to feed the nation, then the nation will be willing to sell even its birthright just to be able to survive. Insecurity just doesn't reduce the number of farms available, it breaks supply chain, it increases labor gap, and it cripples national economies and makes countries like Nigeria heavily dependent on imports to survive. Agriculture is supposed to be the backbone of the nation. But what happens when the backbone of any human being is broken? It's a crippling effect, and it can even lead to death. What happens when a trailer carrying 8 million naira worth of tomatoes is hijacked? Or when a young agripreneur trying to survive is being kidnapped and killed in daylight and nobody can do anything about it? What happens when farmers who are trying to survive, who are trying to make food available for the country, are being kidnapped and killed? That's a problem. And it's beginning to seem as if agriculture is a death trap for many investors and traders. Now it seems as if agriculture is no longer high rewarding, but just high risk. We keep calling on foreign investors to come to our country to invest. But one thing that we must know is that every investor seeks for return.
What advice, Your Excellency, the only way for you to attract foreign investments or investors is by having local investors.
And if they are investing in a high risk venture, of course they want a high reward back. So when a sector like agriculture is proving unstable, due to instability in of farmers, due to killing and kidnapping of farmers, investors want to violently shy away from investing in such a country. Banks are now highly conservative in lending to agricultural businesses and agro startup. Why? Because the default rate is now very high due to insecurity of farmers, due to poor infrastructure on the farm, due to high rate of agricultural apathy.
The Boko Haram insurgency has disrupted our farming activities for about 9 years now. I usually cultivate over 4 hectares of groundnut and beans farm, but not anymore. We've been hearing about the anchor borrowers and other loans that assist farmers, but I've never applied for any due to the insurgency that stopped us from farming.
All these things make banks not to be interested in funding agricultural startups.
Last week, BOA, Unity Bank, Keystone Bank say you can only deal with us going forward. They said I've recovered about 9 billion naira. When I said, how much is 9 billion when you compare with the loan of about 90 billion? Even this one is that we are the ones going to the farmers, not the uncles. The uncles have just taken themselves off.
Generally, agricultural startups get less than even 5% of the total available credit. And this is not good for farmers, and this is not good for the sector that is feeding the nation. You may say, of course, let banks stop lending to farmers because of their high default rate. But when lending stops, growth stops. And imagine when the feeding aspect of the nation stops growing. Even the most fertile soil, when not properly taken care of, produces only hunger. Now imagine this. A farmer leases a land and loses 7 million naira because invaders invaded his farm and set his farm on fire. Or another scenario when a rice processor is being kidnapped from his facility and is made to pay a ransom of 7 million naira, and now because he is scared of going back to that processing plant or even to the farm, now sells only imported rice, now trades only imported rice. This is not good for the nation. Capital exits, production reduces, there is now scarcity, and because of scarcity, import has to increase, and when imports increases, the naira has to fall. And when naira falls, there is inflation, of course, and inflation brings about a falling currency and prices begin to rise massively. You may say, of course, why don't African farmers make use of insurance policies? But the insurance penetration of Nigeria is less than even 2%.
We also had a situation in 2018 of massive flood in about 19 states in the country. That issue has still not been addressed. Farmers were given money, and then when they went and planted, natural disaster happened, and that issue has not been addressed. There has not been the insurance. The NAIC has not been forthcoming with the insurance and to help the farmers.
Nigerian agripreneurs don't even know about insurance policy, and when there is a massive breakout or when there is a massive loss in their businesses, they bear 100% of the risk, and this just brings massive pains to the lives of farmers and agriculturists in Nigeria. Compare that to a country like India, where agricultural insurance is compulsory for credit access. We don't even get to know about it. There's no proper education being done for farmers. Agriculture doesn't have to feel like gambling. Agriculture is supposed to be protected, something that's sacred, because it involves feeding, it involves food. It's supposed to be a sacred industry where nobody toils with. Because in the end, if anybody wants to control anybody, control its food. Because an hungry man is an angry man. Now you may say, I'm living in the city, I'm living in the town. Those things have nothing to do with me. I'm being protected in the city. There is no more food, and you have to go to the market to buy food. You have to buy, most of those foods you buy are from rural areas. And when the people who are producing those foods leave those places, there is a problem for you because you're going to experience rising costs. When there is food scarcity, it becomes a tool for manipulation. There is now food hoarding. Even the small amount of food that is now available for supply is now going to be hoarded because of poor policies, and then because people want to make profits, so they tend to hoard their price, wait for when the price is going to increase, and this brings about more instability in market pricing. It affects individuals. It affects us as a nation. People don't riot when they are hungry. They don't riot for democracy. They are rioting for food. They are rioting for rice. People now burst into people's warehouses to take food because they are now hungry, and they want to feed. They want to afford to feed their families and take care of their children. So when all these things are happening, it calls for urgent action on the side of government, calls for urgent action on the side of stakeholders, of investors, to find out what needs to be done about insecurity, especially for the agricultural sector. The tragedy of agriculture in Africa or in Nigeria is not just insecurity, it's the fact that we let our most important economic tools to rot in our hands while we neglect. We import what we should be exporting. We import things that we should be exporting. We export our raw materials, our power. We export our power. We export our youths because they're in search of hope. Insecurity has brought lots of harm, and it has continuously brought about decay in the economic facet of this country. Contrary to the myth, agriculture is not a gamble. It's a system. It's a structured system. When built with intelligence, when built with value addition, when built with supply chain mastery and strategic thinking, agriculture can be and is the most resilient and scalable industry in Africa. Right now, we don't need charity. We don't need another aid in this country. We don't need to be focused on who's going to help us, who's going to give us another aid, who's going to give us another loan or another grant. We need to start producing our food. We need to start adding value to our raw materials to turn them into finished goods so that we can also export some goods while we import things that we cannot even produce. The truth of the matter is that you don't need 100 million to start in agriculture. You don't need 1 billion to start. You don't need 100 hectares of land. All you need is insight. You need the right training. You need the mindset to be able to succeed in agriculture. Because if you succeed in agriculture, you're not just feeding your family. You're not just feeding your community. You're feeding the nation. And you're helping the future generations of this country and this nation to be able to stand and to be able to survive years to come. This nation can be built by us and can be built by young minds and serious minds who are ready to invest their minds, their hearts into transform the agricultural sector into a rising sector. So the question is no more, is agriculture relevant? But the question now is, will you sit and watch your nation starve, or will you join this revolution to make Nigeria another great nation?